Yeah.
Okay, so again, I think everyone knows me, but I'm Grace. I was this year's digital marketing and e-commerce intern, and I was doing digital merchandising under Kristen. So this is just a quick overview, but basically I've been here 11 weeks, so I'm going to get into a little bit of what I was doing within those 11 weeks here, which was a lot of auditing, some Power BI, mapping, SKU optimization, activation forms, stuff like that. A lot of syndication with all the 6 main e-tailers. So just really quick about me, I'm a rising senior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I am getting a double major in marketing and management. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, specifically Glen Ellen, if people are familiar, which is directly west of the city. I studied abroad in Barcelona, Spain. I was there for about 4 months, and within that time frame, I went to 11 countries and 24 cities, so that was a really cool experience. Just a really quick numbers at a glance. So I audited 770 SKUs, hopefully by the time I leave, trying to get it up to 800. I analyzed 1,728 SKUs within Power BI. I mapped 5,478 SKUs, and this was really important for syndication and optimization, SKU optimization. I pulled and mapped 1,300 images from the DAM, did a lot with Sean in terms of all of that so far. I kicked out 40 activation forms with the comm team in the Beacon, and I resolved over 54 Zendesk tickets, whether that was correcting the product detail page, syndicating images, or stuff like that. I also worked with all the 6 e-tailers, but probably I would say Home Depot the most. So you might feel like that's awesome, but why does it matter? So e-commerce, as you guys obviously know, is a really big thing. It currently is 18% of our business, and that number has been basically doubling within the past years. So Kohler really sees the value in e-com. And within all of that 18% of sales, 90% of our sales are coming from 6 main e-tailers, which is Amazon, Build, Lowe's, Home Depot, eFaucets, and Wayfair. So really making sure that those pages look good is one of our top priorities, because then it can drive more sales and ultimately lead in bigger numbers, better conversion rates, and all of that. So with auditing, I performed, like I said, over 770 SKUs, and I would say there's between like 3 and 4 main audits that I did, but I have also done a bunch of side audits. This main one I started with was auditing the top performing SKUs, probably 10 for each category across all categories. And this is really important because we want those to look good in order to sell more, and there's all these metrics behind what adding something can add in terms of glance views, sales, and things like that. I also audited the dogs, so those are the stuff that aren't doing so well, because it's also important to look at the things that aren't doing well and see, can we change that, can we make it, a better SKU. I also did a lot of new product launch audits. That was mostly for Kathy and her categories, so like vanities, med cabs, sinks, artistic editions. I was doing a lot under her. And then I'm currently working with Sean to also get a little bit deeper into our A band, so kind of looking at what SKUs are basically making 50% or more of our sales. During this time, I also trained 2 associates in the auditing process, so this is really important to kind of make sure it's replicated after I leave. And with that, I also made a template that is still in the shared file that kind of lays it out for people so that they know how to do. There's a color coding key, so a DM can spot glance and say, okay, this blue indigo means that there's missing images on this e-tailer. Red means I don't have enough reviews. So that really just formalizes the system and makes it a lot easier. And then with this, I recently developed a scoring system to basically quantify a SKU's health on every e-tailer across all e-tailers. So I've been working with Sean, so a SKU might be doing, X% on Amazon or Wayfair, but then we average it and kind of give it an average health status. And that's really important because a SKU might be 50% healthy, but if you take Lowe's out of the equation, it all of a sudden is 90% healthy. So it's really important because then they can look at the audit and say, okay, I'm gonna focus on this e-tailer because it's really not doing well, but everything else is pretty buttoned up and looks good. This top part, that's what the template looks like for the audit. So anyone can go in and it's pretty easy to understand, and they can kind of just start doing the audit, do the plug and chug, and make sure it's all looking good. So like I said, auditing is really important. So there's a bunch of metrics behind it. Adding A+ content can basically help 11% of sales 6 months after it's added, and then almost 7% after a month it's been live. Blackout images on Home Depot can help increase views by 25% and help increase sales by 4%. And reviews are also super important. So one review can have basically a 10% increase, a 0 to 30 can be up to 25%, and 0 to 100 is basically a 37% increase. So during this, when I was giving the SKU a percentage, if anything had 10 reviews, we rated it as healthy. They got credit for having enough reviews, but if anything is 0 to 10, we're trying to use Bizarre Voice and Seeds and other forums to help increase reviews. I also did a lot in Power BI, so this was more looking at trend analysis and a little bit of market analysis too. So I analyzed over 1,728 SKUs. So the biggest part that I did in Power BI was to help find which SKUs we want to prioritize and getting sold first on Kohler.com, because the SKUs that are going to bring in the most money, we want to put as live as soon as we can and make sure they're buttoned up. And that's going to really be crucial to our sales and showing how we do on Kohler.com. So I used Power BI to determine which SKUs we should put live first. I also analyzed individual SKUs and looked at their trend analysis across the e-tailers to see which e-tailer was performing poorly, and I cross-referenced the audits to see what we could do if there was something, maybe there was a promotion or maybe there was a different change, and kind of targeting from that side of things as well to really help the DM or myself prioritize what action we're going to take across what e-tailer. I mapped 5,478 SKUs for syndication, and this could be anything from doing like an OSM ID or an ASIN. And this is really helpful because at the time we currently have 6 different arms of syndication unless you're syndicating across all e-tailers. So it's really important to help have communication with the brand advocate and just understand, are they doing like a really formal system? Are they doing OSM ID? Because if you give them the SKU and they don't have that, it's really not going to be that helpful. So just having transparency with the brand advocate was really helpful. And also this plays in with SKU optimization, so I would map out images and see how we wanted it to look on the product detail pages, and then send it over towards Sean, who would syndicate it every 2 weeks. I did a lot in the DAM too. I pulled and mapped over 1,300 assets to all e-tailers, so this would be SKU optimization or even working with the individual ones and individually emailing the brand advocates to have something come live. So that's the number of images that I personally pulled. That doesn't include the images that Sean was pulling from SKU optimization. Did a lot with activation forms. I think the Beacon was sick of me last week. I had a lot of forms, but I sent in over 40 forms to the comm team in the Beacon, and within those 40 forms, there's over 353 SKUs. So this is really important because as of 2017, for every SKU the Beacon touched, it equated to an additional $9,000 of sales. From a student perspective, it was also really nice because I was able to learn a lot about the business and understand what all assets, like what was going on, what we were creating. And I also was given the opportunity to present the activation forms that I made too, which was a really good practice opportunity for presenting and talking with different people. I also sent in forms for retouched images for approval because on some sites an image would be live, but then it's no longer approved in the DAM, so you got to go back and make sure it's all kind of looking the same. And in terms of new content, I produced 149 blackout images, 42 room renders, and 151 inline content. So inline content, rich content, A+ content, it all helps lead more people to the page. It helps with sales and conversion. So those are all really big things, especially considering the metrics from the audits that I named earlier. Within the 6 arms of syndication, I contacted all the e-tailers. I definitely was working with Zendesk Tickets and Home Depot the most, a lot with Kylie. So as of right now, I have 54 tickets resolved, but there's still more out there that are still in the process of getting resolved. I also worked in Jira, and then even also had some stuff refined on Kohler.com, even though it's not yet selling, but still had to make sure the product detail pages were buttoned up before that happens. So just a quick summary. Again, I was here for 11 weeks, and during my 11 weeks, I touched 4,870 SKUs. And for every SKU that I touched, we kind of pulled the metrics, and it led to a $470 increase. Incremental increase for every SKU, which is about $2.3 million coming into the company just from the audits or touching all of that. So that was a really cool thing for me to see and to know as an intern I'm bringing value to the company on that big of a level is pretty cool. So yeah, thank you. Anyone have questions? Yes, we knew you would have some.
So when you're optimizing a product detail page, right? You're looking at multiple things. Some things you mentioned were A+ content, reviews, and blockout images.
Yes.
Product title optimization is also key, so is the right copy.
Right.
If I were launching new product or I was a new brand, what would be the #1 thing you would tell me to focus on and why?
Oh, that's tough. I'm torn between two right off the bat. I think the title is really important because if you search on any of the top 6 e-tailer sites or even in Google, they use like all of their optimizations, search optimizations, and they organize things a lot by a title. And I know from a consumer side of things, I won't click on something that's totally irrelevant, like you want it to matter. So I think title is big, but then I also think imaging is really big. I think there's a sweet spot. I think I was doing an audit where one product detail page had 29 images, and that's crazy. It's almost overwhelming. But then you want a really good quality images so that they know what they're getting, because as people start to do more things online, you can't, see, touch, and feel it. So they want to get as close of an interaction with the products before purchasing it.
With the massive content audit that you did, what's the #1 piece of content that you think that were most lacking?
I think it depends on the category. I would say overall probably inline content. I think that's something that's really helpful because they can see a little bit more about the product, and even if it's just kind of mirroring what's in the product detail page and the features and benefits, not everyone's going to read that. So I think inline content is a really unique way to show and showcase what the product has, and even like bundles or what you can attach with it and stuff that they wouldn't really think about, or what has to be bought together, even things like that. I think inline content is huge.
After diving into all of this data, what was the most surprising takeaway or gap that you discovered?
Oh boy, probably I saw this one today. I told Kristen and Sean this, but I'm doing an A-band audit right now. So that's not quite the top 10, but like the next top 10 that are still really impacting sales. And I was doing one for performance showering, and they had none of the next 10 A-bands live on Lowe's. So I was like, this is something that's bringing in so much, and we looked at it and it was stuff that should have been live. It was easy stuff that we're just losing sales because it's not live. So I think there's a mix of things that just aren't live that need to be, and that, even if it's not the prettiest product detail page, that it's gonna help us out, definitely.
One
Yes.
other question, simple.
Okay.
Of those top 6 e-tailers that you mentioned that account for 95% of our business,
Yes.
what site do you think represents Kohler the best?
Home Depot. Yes, I love Home Depot.
Fine, who's #2 then? Who's #2?
I answered that. I knew you were going to
So
ask that.
biased.
I think Build.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Amazon's getting there.
Whose has the most work to do?
Lowe's,
Okay.
by far.
No surprise. Yep, you know your stuff.
Consistent.
Yep. I feel like everyone feels the same way. But I think Amazon's close to being there. Maybe it's that it's more aesthetically pleasing, but I like how Home Depot and Build kind of have a template like built into their search system. Not even, we can't change that on Amazon, but I just think it's easier to scroll through and kind of pick and choose what's more important. I think it grabs attention better, personally.
When you're going through the content audit and then you're looking at the DAM, did you find a lot of cases where we were missing content that actually existed in the DAM? We just didn't have it?
That's an interesting question. So it depends on the SKU. There's a lot of room renders that are missing for a lot of Kathy's products, honestly. But then in terms of blockouts, we're pretty good about that. So if it's missing, just not having enough blockout images, I could have easily pulled that and sent it to Sean. But then the things we needed the most of were inline content and room renders, easily.
And they don't exist.
They don't exist, but then I would go and send in the activation form. So it's already in the process of getting made. It's been presented at the Monday meeting, so it's currently out of the hands of our team, and it's now on the beacon to actually get it in motion. We've done everything we can up until now. So I think in my time here, I've only had one project come through out of the 40 forms and say, okay, here's the budget, here's what we're doing for these room renders. So Kathy and I looked through it, and she okayed the budget, so that's gonna start getting produced. But up until now, we only have that.
So if you were in charge, what would you change to make that better?
From our side of things or the Beacon? I think
For the customer.
for the customer. So definitely just getting the content out there is huge. I think it honestly goes on the Beacon right now because we have everything we can do, and they have so many projects that I don't know if it would help getting more people or a bigger budget, but just getting it actually produced I think is huge because I feel like we have all of our ducks in a row. And the thing that's hard, I know I've talked to Kristen about that, the thing that's hard about our job is that you're dependent on so many different people that you might do what you can do and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm waiting, like right now I have things sent out, but I have syndicated through emailing the brand advocates and I think they got it, but they don't tell me if they got it and they don't tell me if it's completed. So then it's kind of on me to go look, and I feel like the Beacon's very similar. You just kind of have to wait until they pick it up and wait until it gets prioritized, but they have so many projects, so it's hard.
So understanding that the Beacon has kind of like a backlog, so to speak,
Right.
For us to get into queue, are they using any of the data that you provide, in terms of potential sales opportunity?
So there is a part in the activation form that asks for a little bit of a description. So Sarah, when she was talking with me about just doing the activation forms in the first place, it wasn't just saying like, oh, we need this created. It was always important for us to say why it mattered, because if you don't say why it matters, it kind of is like, okay, another project. So I think we would try to put it in the form, and that's hoping that they read everything, saying, this would help increase sales. We weren't necessarily, at least I wasn't saying a metric where it's like by this percent, because that's kind of hard to say just on a form, but from at least my knowledge, they know how valuable what they're doing is, so I just think they have such a long line to